I'm Shirakawa from OE Transport. Thank you for having me today.
OE Transport is a racehorse transport company that runs routes from Hokkaido to Honshu, and 2 out of your 6 trucks go all the way to Kansai, right?
That's correct.
I heard that route was deep in the red. Was that until recently?
Yes. Until we raised our prices a few years ago, quite a few of those trips were losing money. In terms of profit, it was almost at the point where we wondered if it was even worth doing. Over the course of a year, we'd just about break even, or see a tiny profit. Yeah, there were definitely times when we questioned why we were even keeping it going in that state.
But there's a huge demand for it, isn't there?
Oh, the demand is definitely there. For JRA horses, there are only 2 quarantine facilities, the Miho Training Center in Ibaraki for Kanto, and the Rito Training Center in Shiga for Kansai. So, any JRA horse has to go to one or the other.
Right, and regarding Rito. This is just my personal impression, but it seems like there are more horses at Rito than at Miho.
I wonder about the actual numbers. There's a limit on how many horses each trainer can manage, but in terms of popularity, there's always been this image that the Kansai horses are stronger and more likely to win.
And didn't the facilities used to be different, which made Rito even stronger?
That's right, it was the training tracks. I think they built the uphill tracks first.
I see.
And that made a huge difference in their training capacity. For a long time, the horses just came out in much better condition.
Right.
Naturally, owners want to send their horses to the trainers who are winning. Even if the other side catches up later with similar facilities, it's hard to win back that momentum.
So the demand was there, but you were still operating at a loss.
The pricing structure was just fundamentally wrong to begin with. It dates back to when I first started, decades ago. Even the veteran managers aren't entirely sure what it was based on, just that this is how it's always been. But the rates were set based on the Kanto route, from Hokkaido to Kanto. I think it's fine to be open about shipping rates in this industry, but
Well,
if you ask someone who has nothing to do with thoroughbreds or racing how much they think it costs to transport a horse, they usually guess an amount that's wildly different from the reality.
I guess because the horses themselves are worth millions or even hundreds of millions.
On the low end, they'll guess maybe 500,000 yen. Some even say a million yen sounds cheap, or maybe 2 or 3 million. That's what people outside the industry often think. But in reality, until just a few years ago, even as prices and expenses rose over the decades, the rate for one horse from Hokkaido to Kanto stayed at 100,000 yen for 40 years.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was the standard. So for Kansai, how much of a difference is it? From Hokkaido to Kanto, it's about 1,000 kilometers one way, roughly. To Kansai, it's 1,500 kilometers. It takes about 1.5 times longer. Just thinking simply, it should cost 1.5 times more, right? Anyway, it's about the turnover rate of transport. We've talked about the 2024 problem, but because of the quarantine system, there are specific days for acceptance, so it takes more days to get to Kansai. And the return trip takes just as long, right? So the number of round trips you can make is low. Even though the turnover is low, you still have the same number of staff and the same number of trucks, right? So in reality, the costs are actually much higher.
Certainly.
It's not just a simple 1.5 times increase. And yet, if you ask what the fare was, it was only 1.25 times more, at 125,000 yen.
Wait, what? Well,
We were doing the impossible. Back then, fuel and trucks were cheaper, so we managed somehow, but it was barely breaking even. But for Kanto, compared to us or another company in Kansai, their profit margin is honestly enviable.
I see. So going to Kansai ends up tying up those trucks for a longer period, whereas if you kept using them in Kanto, you would actually make that much more in sales. But since there is a steady demand,
Right. We have to meet our customers' expectations, especially in our case. Since my father's time, we've always focused on how to transport the horses with the least amount of stress possible. Right. Now, young people today don't know this at all. Racetracks, including local ones, used to be all over Japan. We had to transport horses to many different places, but even then, we tried to avoid detours as much as possible. If we were going to Rito, we'd go straight there without stopping at other tracks. We still do that today, using a one-stop system while trying our best not to stop anywhere else. Of course, doing that 100% of the time throughout the year is difficult. Sometimes we have to stop elsewhere, but because we prioritize direct transport, we were in the red, or rather, just barely scraping by. On the other
hand, if you stop at other tracks or farms along the way to pick up or drop off horses.
Exactly. The fare from Hokkaido to Kansai is quite high compared to Kanto because of the distance, and it's even cheaper to places like Iwate. But there are companies that specialize in local racing, so they leave Hokkaido, drop off at Iwate, pick up more horses there, drop off in Minami Kanto, pick up again, go to Nagoya, drop off, pick up, and finally arrive at Rito to unload everything. They might even go to Sonoda after that. If they're good at that, then even with a base fare of 125,000 yen, their profits are massive compared to ours.
The number of horses increases each time.
The number of horses per trip is completely different.
However, the burden on the horses is much greater.
That's right. It seems to be clearly different. There were many trainers who understood that, so they wanted to rely on transport. Many trainers have used us as their main carrier. But, well, it's the times, you know. There was a period when trainers also started being pressured about costs. During that era, they turned to cheaper companies. They felt that even if it was cheap and nasty, they had no choice.
How long were you actually in the red?
When we raised our prices for the first time in 30 years, it got slightly better, but we only raised them by a tiny amount, and the rate for the Kansai region wasn't a huge increase either. Then, when we raised them again before last year's 2024 problem, we finally managed to get closer to a price that reflects the clear cost difference between Kanto and Kansai. We asked them to let us add just this much. And now, as of today's filming, notices requesting a new price increase should probably be starting to reach various customers right about now.
So, with this price increase, will you finally be able to keep the Kansai route going?
Yes, for both Kansai and Kanto, but to put it another way, our approach is always to avoid any unreasonable operations. We try our best not to overtax the horses or the people involved, though there is still a certain burden.
In reality, yes, because you're pushing yourselves.
It's a significant burden on the people too. By operating this way to avoid overwork, unlike others in the industry, we've reached a point where being in the red once every 2 or 3 terms is almost expected. Part of me thought that was okay. But from now on, we must lead the industry here in Hokkaido. Given the various scenarios and our tight finances, when I think about how to take the initiative and keep challenging ourselves, it's hard to make the next move. Operating on such a thin margin, you can't
invest.
Exactly. We're always constantly working to stay ahead by putting in new and advanced equipment in our vehicles. But that's where we're exhausting all our resources.
No reserve.
No reserve left, yes. To ensure truly sound management, we need to earn a profit. Please understand that if you feel transport is still needed, we ask for your support. If not, you can go with a cheaper company. An unnecessary company will simply be weeded out.
That's right, yes. And
I think it's fine. It's like the talk about the facilities at Rito and Miho earlier. In the end, there's the issue of space, but at Rito, for quite some time now, walking machines in front of the stables. Oh, is that so? Yes, it's becoming standard. But at Miho, space is tight and trainers nearing retirement aren't going to invest in new equipment now, right? Well, if anything, Rito has those facilities. By using machines effectively, people can get at least a little more rest. Yes, compared to Miho, it's more possible there. Because of that, even among those becoming stable hands, there's a side that says they don't want to go to Miho, they want to go to Rito. In terms of ratios, there are more horses that are sure to win, so they want to go to Rito for the prize money. Yes, motivationally, they want to be with winners, but even considering the working environment,
to some extent, yes, the old
image is exactly why good horses don't come in. Because they don't come in, they can't win. Because they can't win, they can't invest in facilities. The gap just keeps on widening, you know?
Widening.
It's true. For horse transporters like us, the amount of information is really small. But for trainers, jockeys and owners, The results are clearly out there in numbers on the internet. People can see who's getting results and decide they want to stable their horses there. Yes, but on the flip side, if something goes wrong and people leave all at once, or the level drops, it shows in the numbers and customers will pull away. That happens too. Well, next year for sure, we must 100% clear the 2024 problem. We have to clear that at the very least, or we never know when we'll face administrative action and be forced to stop company operations. To avoid being put in a position where we're shut down, that's the bare minimum to clear. And even now, we're communicating with the Transport Bureau and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism. Yes, but it's like we're getting nowhere. It's a total runaround. Yes, with this situation of ask over here or ask over there continuing, the law that went into effect in April 2025 is demanding things that only companies contracted with major firms in a multi-layered subcontracting structure could possibly do. Since it's the law, we might have no choice, but if we're going to do it, well, for the horse transport we do now, and this goes for every company. Exchanges like, what time is tomorrow's horse leaving? Where should I load it? Load it from our such and such branch. Or that horse is over there, so load it from that farm. Doing all that the day before is impossible if we have to sign a contract every single time.
Every single time, really.
Yeah, what time? From where to where? It's a contract where both parties stamp it. If it's decided in the evening whether the decision makers are there, is something we don't even know. On weekends, there are people on duty at the ranches or stables in those positions, but do they really have that level of decision-making authority? If the person usually in charge is off, and before it was fine to just say, just listen to what they say. Now it's like, can I actually stamp this?
That's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I wonder what the government is trying to do. Paper.
They want it done on paper or something?
They told us to do it on paper, which is ridiculous. Why do we have to use paper for something that needs to be done so urgently? They say, oh, email is fine or cloud sign is fine. I get that they're saying it's okay, but do they realize how many companies out of all these can't handle cloud sign or email? Right? Most small companies are like, what's cloud sign? Exactly. I mean, even in Shizunai, where there's a parking lot now, when we started operating properly a year or two ago, there wasn't even Wi-Fi. There are so many ranches like that, and yet they expect email correspondence. And on their end,
well, they have to do that while handling their regular daily operations, right? They're already short-staffed. And now this...
Right? Even for us, the time spent on these tasks, we'll need someone to interpret the law and prepare for compliance. As I might have mentioned before, we'll probably need at least one person dedicated solely